unstructured time to spend together. Unstructured time. Time when anything can happen. Time when something new might happen. Unordered time is another way to say that. Just being together and appreciating one another for who we are. Sabbath has also been a time when we hang out with our community. It's why I have always loved living places where you can go and sit on a village green and listen to music. It's one of my favorite things to do. I don't get to do it enough. But in Ohio, Central Ohio, Cleveland, and here, it's available. And it's a very sweet thing to do. And I often enjoy watching the people more than I do listening to the music. It's my way of engaging in community and feeling like I'm part of a community. Now, the Jewish creation story ended with God resting to teach us that we must rest too. We claim that we are made in the image of God. It's one of our central beliefs. If so, then that means that our divine selves need time and space to blossom and to flower. Our divine selves may be the most delicate part of who we are. Easily set aside, forgotten, suppressed, ignored. God rested, and so must we. Or we lose sight of our true selves. We often have to be reminded that there is more to who we are than what we do in our jobs. What we do during the work week. Trust me, I feel great pain for those people who work so hard all their lives to support their families, and they come to the end of their work life and they don't know what to do. Watched a movie last night. John McCain is a character in the movie. John McCain talks about his grandfather. Died within a week after retirement. John McCain talks about his father. Died within weeks after retirement. Had no reason to live. His meaning was associated with his job entirely. And without meaning, we do not live. John McCain said, "I'm never going to stop working." That's what he learned from his grandfather and his father. That you die if you're not always working. It was a powerful moment. I think most of you may actually believe that you are more than what you do for a living. That you'll believe it even more if you take time off to just honor the divine within you. What do I mean by that? It's another phrase that may not mean anything to you. It's trusting that you have value for who you are, not what you do, not what you earn, not what you create, not what you know. If you really believe God created you, and if you really believe God loves you, and you have value simply for who you are, that's what we forget when we become our work, when we become our jobs, when we become our meaning is entirely associated with that part of our lives. Now, when children are asked why God rested on the seventh day, I have a whole book about children and what they had to say about many questions. They come up with some very insightful answers, as children usually do. One 10-year-old girl suggested that, well, God needed a mental health day. Who's she thinking about? She knows her family. They need a mental health day. A 6-year-old girl decided that God had to spend some time with his wife. Who is she thinking about? Okay? And one 8-year-old boy, I think it was because he wanted to have one big day set aside for sports. NFL Sunday brought to you by God. But just think about what it means that these kids, they could sense that their human family needed mental health days, that the spouses needed more unstructured time to be together. And even young Mike, whose house is apparently devoted to sports on Sunday, Mike was onto something. Because the Jews, much more than the Christians, I have to say, have always devoted some serious time on the Sabbath to just having fun. That was part of the goal. Not walking around with your prayer beads and your shawls around your head, and not feeling sorry for the state of the world and saying prayers for poor people starving someplace, but having fun. religious life, or it could be. Jews practice this by playing games, by having carnivals, by dancing, by drinking wine. Wine apparently is very big in many Jewish Sabbath practices. And of course, music. The need for fun was recognized and honored, the human need for fun. Having fun lifts your spirit, you know that. And it helps you bond with the community that you're having fun with. It's one of the most incredible ways that we bond. It's how most of our children are socialized, by playing with each other. Okay, it's time for me to say that I don't think there's any way we could ever bring back the Sabbath as it used to be practiced, or even as this country recognized Sabbath for so many years, by enforcing laws that put down commerce, that let certain other things be open. We live in too diverse a culture to ever agree on something like that, even if we wanted to, and that's okay. We're a very diverse culture and country. We're becoming more so. That's okay. Practicing the Sabbath, in other words, has always been countercultural. And if you were going to try in any way, shape, or form to do it in your lives, you're going to feel countercultural. You're going to be going against the grain, going against the flow. And I have to say that keeping the Sabbath is next to impossible for people who have tried without the support of some kind of community. Which is why today I'm talking about families. Any kind of families. You and one other person, whoever that might be. A family keeping a Sabbath. It's why the Jewish Center in Columbus, Ohio can close for 24 hours. Because the entire community supports and values that practice. And the rest of us drive by and think, why are they closed on Friday night? Nobody speaks. Nobody sneaks into that building on Friday night and teaches classes or tries to perform plays. The entire community has accepted that they are going to not do. There may be many ways that we can bring Sabbath into our lives. As I promised last week, my intent is never to make anybody feel guilty or to lay another burden on your already busy lives. Shulevitz recommends what she calls cultivating sanctuary. We're sitting in a sanctuary. We call that because we think it's safe. It's sacred. It's holy. We have a chance to do something here we cannot necessarily do out there. So she suggests trying to cultivate moments of sanctuary, places of sanctuary, in your life, in your home, in your relationships. You can call it creating sacred time. And it doesn't have to be Friday night to Saturday night. It doesn't have to be all day on Sunday. It helps me right now as I'm trying to struggle with this issue, it helps me to try to think of different kinds of Sabbaths. And I'm calling them right now big Sabbaths and little Sabbaths. Big Sabbaths are really long, like a day. Little Sabbaths are little moments. I'm going to talk about big right now. I'm going to talk about little next week. It also helps to think about individual Sabbaths and communal Sabbaths. Time that you're spending alone could be Sabbath, but also time with other people. And those two categories, big, little, individual, communal, are helping me imagine ways that you might do this. So let me say a few words about big Sabbaths, and next week I'll take a look at the other side. Angela and I, years ago, we actually tried to keep a big Sabbath. We were in Columbus, Ohio. She had two careers at the time, two thriving careers, working her tail off. And I worked a lot. I happened to have many different jobs. And one of those jobs I did from home. And it's why I understand the incredible challenges that you go through, any of you who are working from home. Because it's hard to get away. And it's hard not to go back. And that computer is calling you all the time. And somebody may literally be calling you all the time on the phone. And when you do get away, it's hard not to think of something and want to go back and work some more. It becomes really obsessive. Even then, your home, your private sanctuary, becomes a busy workplace in your mind. And you never quite relax the same way. So Angela and I decided that we would not work from Saturday evening until noon on Sunday. We weren't trying to do 24 hours. We were just trying to do 18. And for us at that time, not working meant not taking phone calls too, unless of course it was some kind of an emergency. And eventually our friends and family learned that we really didn't want to talk if you called during those hours. We weren't going to spend an hour on the phone with you. We'd make a date to talk at a different time. We weren't ultra strict about it. The main rule, and the most important rule, was simply not to work and to be together. It was good while it lasted. It helped our relationship. It helped ourselves. It came to an end when I got a professional church job. And I had to go into work almost every Sunday and some Saturday nights. Gee, I lost my Sabbath when I became a professional. The Sabbath quietly disappeared into the past, frequently mourned but not recreated. We just recently revisited the idea of doing it again. And we think we may have found another 18-hour block of time during our week when we might be able to begin cultivating sanctuary in our lives. Be sure to let you know when that time is. As you might expect, the author of the book eventually created a big Sabbath in her life. She eventually gets married. She eventually has 2 kids. And she's been working with Sabbath in different forms all this time. Going to synagogue, studying, becoming more serious about the Jewish faith. But Sabbath became and remained a real issue because it is so hard. She made an observation that I consider very helpful and which you need to hear if you try this. What she says is, we can't just switch from work mode to Sabbath mode immediately. Some people get hung up there. It's just hard to let down. It's hard to change. It's hard to transition. She and her family light candles at sundown, just as people have done for thousands and thousands of years when they practice Sabbath. Often they take long baths. Sometimes they dress up a little, even though they're at home. They have a big dinner. And these things help them move from business, from the world of business, to being fully present to the now, and to being fully present to those you are sharing the Sabbath with. As for rules, she has a few. Cell phones are off. All electronic devices are off. There's no Facebook on the Sabbath. They try not to make purchases or carry wallets when they go out. But they're not totally strict. As Shulevitz puts it, since they live near New York City, the temptations are very great. And if the kids get too restless, what do? Well, they go visit a museum. And they figured out that if they have a yearly membership to the museum, they don't need to exchange money when they go in. So they can keep practicing that no commerce at the moment. And she has had to make a concession that I know many of you make, a concession that often even prevents you from attending church on Sunday. Shulevitz shares that she recently confronted the specter of Saturday morning soccer practice and was defeated by it. She says, my son now plays soccer instead of going to synagogue, and my husband, of course, goes with it. Just because you can't do it perfectly doesn't mean you shouldn't try to do it. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. Nothing that's countercultural is ever easy. It takes great willpower. And she herself says that practicing Sabbath is the hardest, and listen to this, the hardest and least unconscious thing I've ever done. It takes great consciousness, focus, intention to make this happen. And strangely enough, the very benefits often show up in one's consciousness. Because you've gotten away, and you've gone somewhere else, and you do it on a regular basis. You trust that it will be there, and you are healthier as a result. So it takes great willpower, and it really helps to have somebody doing it with you. Would your life be richer if you had more unstructured time? Would it be more meaningful if you took time to reflect on a regular basis on your life? Or even just your week? God's wisdom and human wisdom both suggest that any amount of regular unstructured time would help us establish a rhythm that could benefit us in so many ways. It could certainly help remind us that we are made in God's image, that we do have a spark of the divine within us that requires tending. As a family, it can remind us that we belong to one another, and not to our workplace or to our job. Sabbath will help us stay in touch with our deepest selves. We have to remember to stop, because we have to stop to remember. Amen.